Welcome to Build and happy Halloween. I'm Laura Haywood. My favorite spine-tingling television show this season is without question The Purge. Based on the film of the same name, the series takes place in an alternate America where one night a year, all crime is legal, including murder. Today's guest, Dominic Fumusa, plays a pivotal role as Pete the cop. You know Dominic from Star Turns on Nurse Jackie, Homeland, and Goliath, and the film's Focus and 13 Hours. He also has an extensive... he has an extensive stage background, and we'll get into all of that. But first, let's take a look at The Purge.
You okay, brother? Miguel, she's either alive or she's not. This dude has no idea what's coming for him. We're two badass Marines with an arsenal in our trunk. Let's focus and get it done.
Focus, Pete.
I know we can win this.
RPG, get out!
Wow, what a scene, what a series. It is Halloween, and I mean, look at this logo. This is a scary show.
Yeah. It's
Use
scary.
the mic. Use the mic.
It's scary and it's fun and it's smart too. It's there's a lot of social commentary going on. It's a great combination of stuff. Yeah.
I mean, it's scary when you see characters like this one in the key art who looks like a monster, and there's a lot of sort of, you know, like there's murder and crime going on. But the really scary stuff is how similar this alternate America feels to sort of where our country is headed.
Totally. It's tapping into something. There's like a social experiment going on that, you know, feels like it's. I think when it was conceived, it was meant to be very sort of, you know, dystopia and sci-fi. But now it, unfortunately, feels like maybe we're not so far away. I don't know. It's scary. It's scary.
Yeah, and you know, if you want to get scared.
For sure.
So tell us about your character, Pete the cop. He showed up early in the series for a minute, and then in these last few episodes, he's really come to the forefront a little bit more.
Yeah. So Pete the cop is a Marine. He was a cop, and he stopped being a cop because a lot of guys on the force were using the Purge to sort of be their own judicial system. And he thought that was, you know, wrong and illegal and immoral. So he didn't, he stood up to it, and the force, the department basically, you know, got rid of him. And so now he owns a bar, Pete's Cantina, and he's made a safe haven for people to come on the night of the Purge, to hang out in his bar. No weapons allowed. They check their weapons at the door, and it's just a place to hang out, be safe. And that's when he meets Miguel.
Also a Marine.
Also a Marine, and they connect. And Miguel is, of course, looking for his sister. And so what happens is he tries to help Miguel by sending him early in the season to various spots, to various people to help him find his sister. And it doesn't work out. So he comes back, and he does find her, but when he brings her to the bar, she disappears again, and then that's when Pete says, "Look, we'll team up here," and you know, they do their own version of Starsky and Hutch, and they go out and try to find her, and that's what's going on now. These are the last couple of episodes where that's happening.
Yeah, the second to last episode aired last night,
Yeah.
and I sat there literally with a bowl of popcorn, like cuddled in a blanket, getting into the Halloween spirit. I should say the series is available for binge watching, and it is so binge worthy.
It is.
So as you get ready for that final episode, which will air on November 6th.
Election night.
I know. It's like, which is going to be scarier?
Yeah.
The final episode of The Purge or the results of the elections?
Yeah, the coincidence of that is pretty incredible.
Yeah. As you get ready for that night, if you haven't seen the series yet, you can just sit down and watch all the first 9 episodes back to back. It's almost like an extended film.
No, I think so. That was their intention. Obviously there's been 4 of these films that have all done very well. And James DeMonaco and Tom Kelly, who's the showrunner, James being the person who created it. They wanted to tell the story, obviously, the way the story is told in the films, but because it's over 10 hours instead of 2, you really get to dig in and get to know these people in a more intimate way. But when I was reading the scripts, I'd get the scripts, and even the ones that I'm not in, I felt like I was just, it was like another chapter of a novel. Like, it all read such a great, one story sort of flowing, and then these characters all end up coming together, and it really is, it's really well told. It's a really good story.
I love identifying through lines in the work of the actors that I admire, and there are 2 here. You have definitely played a Marine before, and you've also played a barkeep before. And actually, when I saw Pete the Cop standing behind that bar, my first thought was, that's Mr. Nurse Jackie behind the bar, and maybe in an alternate America, this would be.
Well, when I agree with you. When I saw the set for the first time, I'm like, huh. It was deja vu. Pete's bar looks a lot like Kevin's bar on Nurse Jackie. Yeah, for sure.
How does working on a limited series like this, which they call a 10-episode event, differ from working on an open-ended series that lasts as long as 7 seasons like Nurse Jackie?
Well, in some ways it's different in the sense that obviously this comes to a conclusion that feels full at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it feels like it's been fully told, but that being said, I don't know if there's a season 2, and I don't know if I'll be in a season 2.
Mm-hmm.
So it's set up. You'll see next week that it's set up that. There's definitely a tease that it could go on. Obviously, there's going to be another Purge, and so whether they tell it as an anthology, with a different set of characters, or if there's some hangover from the previous year, and I think all of that's yet to be determined. But what I loved about playing Pete the Cop is that he's, first of all, he's a good guy, and lately I've been playing some maybe not so good guys. So it's always nice when you get to be the hero, or one of the heroes of the story. I mean, that's fun for me, and I also loved getting back into that whole Marine world. I did a movie called 13 Hours where I got to train with Navy SEALs and with
I
Marine.
heard you did like a huge boot camp. With
Yeah,
Marines.
we did a boot camp in LA before we went to Malta to shoot the thing, and it's just fascinating. It's so fun, and you really get to see, how heroic these guys are. Of course, it's make-believe for us, but, when you really think about, they're going into it with, live ammunition, and, I mean, it's, in some ways I can't wrap my brain around it, even though I've been hanging out with these people for a long time. It's still so impressive to me, I'm so impressed by people who commit to protect our country and make that sacrifice. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah. I know you're also a really big sports fan, Green Bay Packers, right?
I am.
And you were an athlete when you were growing up.
I was.
How did you go from being the high school quarterback to being the star of the High School Musical?
Well, I was never really well, I did one musical, but I was never really...
I believe it was called Hamlet Rock, and you played Hamlet in a musical version of the Shakespeare play.
Luckily, I didn't have a lot of singing to do. There was a musical, but most of the songs were sung by other people. I think I had one song on my own. I'm not sure exactly why I started doing theater. It was like something I joined the band. I joined the theater department. I was part of the school newspaper. It was just, but then once I started doing it, I realized I can't stop doing it. Mm-hmm. And so everything else sort of fell away, and it became my life's focus. But, I was playing sports my whole life, and it's funny because I thought I was a really good quarterback. I thought I was a really good basketball player. And, as I got older, and I played some football in college, and you just start to realize, you're not as good as you think you are. But yeah, I still love sports. I love to play when I can, and I'm a huge Packer fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also know you went to graduate school for performing. You moved to New York with just a couple $1,000s in your pocket, and you had a dedication to the idea that you were going to be an actor. Can you talk about the time that you walked out of your temp job to go meet Ang Lee?
Yeah, sure. So I went to graduate school at the University of Illinois in Champaign. And Ang Lee was also a graduate of that school before me, and it's funny, back then I would write letters. I mean, snail mail, but I wrote a letter to Ang Lee, and told him who I was and that I was just finishing up my degree. And he wrote back to me, and he said, keep in touch. And he gave me the address of his office here in New York City, and he gave me the phone number of his assistant. And so I kept in touch. And out of the blue one day, I was temping at an office somewhere in Midtown, I think. And I got a call around maybe, and I got a call to my service, by the way. I didn't have a cell phone. A message was left saying, you know, Aang has a free hour at 2 o'clock for a coffee. And his office was down here. It was, near the Public. I'm not sure, I don't remember the exact address. But, and so I went to my boss at the temp job, and I said, I've got to leave at 2 o'clock today. I've got to leave at 1:30 today to go meet Ang Lee for a coffee, and I'll come back. And she's like, oh no, you can't do that. We have this huge deadline today. We've got to get this thing out by 5 o'clock. And I just looked at her and I went, I'm leaving at 1:30, you know. And I wasn't rude about it, but I was very focused that I was going to do absolutely everything I could to become an actor, and I wasn't going to take no for an answer. So I said, you know, you can fire me, but I'm walking out of here. And she didn't fire me. I came back and after my coffee, and you know, I think we still got the thing off. But yeah, anyway, I had a great conversation with Ang Lee too. He was a really cool guy, and anyway, I would do things like that. You know, I would really reach out to people, and I would study people's careers, and I'd try to literally walk the steps that they had walked to get started and build a career in New York.
What was your first stage job here in New York City? Do you remember?
Yeah, I do. But in the city, my first job was an understudy at the Roundabout for a play called A Flea in Her Ear, that was directed by Bill Irwin.
Oh,
And,
wow. What a debut. You
yeah.
got to work with a literal genius.
Right, it was cool. And Mark Lynn Baker, I think, was the star of the show. And I was understudying with Bobby Cannavale. So Bobby and I were hanging out, and Bobby actually got to go on. I didn't go on. And then shortly thereafter, I left. I got my first actual Broadway play, playing Marissa Tomei's husband in a remount of Wait Until Dark.
Wasn't Quentin Tarantino
with
in it too?
Tarantino
Like
as
again,
the bad guy, yeah.
like dreams coming true.
Yeah, no, really, it was crazy. I was like, holy cow, this is really happening. It was pretty exciting.
Now, was it in Washington, D.C. where you did a play with the woman who would later become your beautiful wife?
I met my wife, the amazing Alana Levine.
Who's a good friend of mine, by the way. And I'm all the more reason I'm excited to be talking to you today.
Yeah, me too. Well, Alana, you know Alana through her podcast, Little Known Facts with Alana Levine, which is an amazing podcast. And anyway, we met doing a play that rehearsed in New York, and then we traveled and did the play, performed the play at the Kennedy Center down in D.C. And what's funny about that is when we auditioned for the play, I don't know if Alana had to audition, I had to audition. Jason Moore, who did Avenue Q and did, you know, Pitch Perfect, and he was going to be the director of this play. So he was responsible for picking the two of us to be love interests in this play. And then shortly before we were to begin rehearsals, we found out he had dropped out. And the directing went to a lovely guy named Jack Hofsis, who has since passed away. But Jack was also an incredible director who won a Tony Award for directing Elephant Man back in the 70s. And I think he might have been like one of the youngest ever to win that award. And of course, Jack was in a wheelchair from a tragic accident that he had as a young man. So he directed everything, you know, from his wheelchair. But anyway, yeah, so that's the play we did. It was called Surviving Grace. And not only did I meet my wife and get a wife out of it, but I also met an actress named Doris Bellick, who played Alana's mother, who, you may know Doris because Doris was the producer of the soap opera that they do in Tootsie. Oh. The woman who's like, oh, I owe myself a quarter, you know, for calling it a soap. And Tootsie is like, in my opinion, the greatest film ever made. So,
you know, it's coming to Broadway.
I do.
There's a big Broadway musical version of Tootsie coming.
I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one too. My favorite part of that story about you and Alana meeting, well, there are two. First of all, you had your first kiss as a stage kiss.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about the first time you kissed off stage and how the on-stage, off-stage kisses were different.
Well, yeah, I was nervous about both. Yeah, we had to kiss on stage, so obviously we kissed, you know, in rehearsal a bit, and then in the, you know, on stage for the performance. And then we didn't really, we were hanging out. Washington, D.C. is a really romantic place because you can walk around the mall and go to all these Smithsonians, and it's kind of the perfect place to fall in love. It's really a great city for that. So that's what we were doing. We were friends, and we were hanging out during the day and doing the play at night. And then toward the end of the run, the kiss happened off stage, and it was great. And, the rest is history.
And then apparently when her parents came backstage, they said, your character was a Jewish doctor, right?
Character was a Jewish doctor, and Bob and Helen Levine from Teaneck, New Jersey came to see the play. And the very first thing my father-in-law said to me was, because it was intimated in the play that these two would stay together and they would probably get married. So the very first thing he said to me was, let me meet my future son-in-law. And
the Jewish doctor.
The Jewish doctor. And he shook my hand, and I went, nice to meet you. And sure enough, that's what happened.
And you're neither Jewish nor a doctor.
I am Jewish now.
Oh, you are Jewish.
Yeah, I was not Jewish at the time.
Oh, but for the love of your life.
Well, yeah, I converted, and I'm very happy about that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of these varied projects you've done on television. I mean, if you look up your IMDb page, you have about 50 credits. Most of them are 1 or 2 episodes as a guest star, as a recurring role. And I know, and then there are several series in which you've done 6 or 7 episodes. I'm curious about whether any of those projects allowed you to improvise, whether everything you've done has been, seriously scripted, where there was no deviation from that, and how getting into character allowed you to sort of create, in addition to just reciting those characters' roles.
I would say most of the time you're going to stick to the script. I mean, there's always some variation, but I'd say a good 75-80% of the time that's what they want. And rightfully so. I did do a season of Goliath with Billy Bob Thornton, and Clyde Phillips hired me for that. But he had run Nurse Jackie, the final 3 seasons of Nurse Jackie, so he knew me from that. And I play on Goliath a dirty cop.
Another through line, and cop, marine, bartender.
Yeah, and he's a dirty cop who doesn't want to be dirty. He made a bad choice, and he got sort of stuck in this thing, and he doesn't really know how to get out of it. And so that was interesting. That was a very interesting part because of the moral dilemma of this guy. But to your question, we did a lot of improvisation on that. Billy likes to improvise, and so when your partner's improvising, you have no choice.
Yeah.
Because what he said didn't make any sense with what you were supposed to say next. So you got to quickly think on your feet. And it's not something that I would say I'm an expert at, but I really loved getting to do that, especially with a guy like Billy Bob Thornton. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's obviously one of our greatest actors, and it was thrilling. And Larry Trilling was the showrunner, and he's such a great guy, and he really let us go. And, we'd always go back to the script, but, there was a lot of chances to sort of find some new stuff every time. And unfortunately, something I learned was I ended up swearing a lot.
The character brought that out of you?
Yeah, I guess so. It's funny what comes out of you when you're improvising.
Uh-huh.
But so I ended up saying a lot of F words, and I didn't realize it until I started watching the series. In the first episode, I watched with my father, who's 96 years old and is in great shape, but he's an older man, comes from a generation where the F word was not thrown around so loosely. And for the first time in my life, I started getting uncomfortable about, I'm watching this episode with my dad. He's like, "What? Why is every other word fuck?" It's like, what's going on? And I didn't have a good answer. It's like, I don't know.
You should have just blamed it on the screenwriter. You don't have to tell them that it's
right. A lot of them. So it's a good lesson. A well-placed profanity goes a long way.
I was also thinking about, I know you come from a really big family, 10 siblings, or you're one of 10?
I'm one of 10.
Do you think that having to navigate the world of such a big family contributed to your ability to collaborate in your work? Because theater is such a world of collaboration, maybe more than television, although I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think, well, they both are, but it's different, obviously. Obviously, the collaboration in television is happening behind the camera. Mm-hmm. On stage, it feels more, everything's there together. But That's a good question. I think probably yes. Certainly, it gave me people skills. And I have 7 sisters, including a twin sister, whose name is Laura. She always gets mad when I don't tell whose name is Laura. My twin is Laura, and I have 2 brothers, 2 older brothers. Laura and I were child 8 and 9. So my parents, they had 9 kids, including twins at the end of it, and they still wanted one more. So we got what I love to refer to as the baby Nancy came next.
Yeah.
The last child.
And the baby Nancy
is now like 40,
in her 40s.
42 years old.
And they still call you little, right?
Yeah, they call me, my brothers called me little because at the time when they started calling me that, I was obviously much smaller than they are, and now I'm much bigger than they are, and so I start calling them little, and now everything's little. But I'm 6'2", and my 2 brothers are like 5'10" and 5'9", so they're little.
Yeah. So. And you have a couple of kids. Are they going to get into the family business?
Yet to be determined. They're very creative. They're both really great musicians. They write their own songs and have great voices, and they both play piano. And our son Caleb, who's 12, plays guitar and saxophone now. And Georgia, our daughter's 15, and she writes her own songs and plays piano. And so we'll see. I did a short film with Georgia when she was 8. Which was really cool, and she did a great job. I really wanted to do it just because I knew it would be like a cool family album to have.
Yeah, like a time capsule.
Yeah, exactly. So we have that. They haven't done a lot of acting other than that. They've done the school play a little bit, but we'll see. Yeah.
Well, they certainly have some talented genes from both sides.
Thank you.
So we'll keep our eyes out for them.
Yeah.
I want to open up questions to the audience. Who has a question?
Hello.
Hi.
So I'm always really interested to ask people who act like what their dream role would be. So I was wondering if you have a role that you've been looking to play or would really like to play at some point.
I did a lot of Shakespeare when I was younger. That's sort of how I got into the business. And there are definitely some parts in Shakespeare that I'd love to do. I think I'm a little old maybe for some of them, but I'd love to play Iago or the Scottish King would be fun. As far as film and television goes, I just want to keep doing the kind of things I've been doing lately. I love playing these military guys. I love playing cops. I'm fascinated with the Vietnam War, and I have an idea for a story there. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that really interests me. I was a political science major in college, so anything where I can mix my love of acting and theater with politics and history, I'm all in. That would be cool.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have another question.
Hi, thanks so much for being here. Since The Purge is a really iconic horror film franchise and everything, I was wondering if you had any favorite horror movies that you would watch to kind of inspire you for this.
Is Alien a horror movie?
Yes.
Yeah, I think Alien's one of the best movies ever made. I love Alien. I haven't seen the new Halloween, but I remember the old one pretty well. That was pretty cool. And silent, it's funny. It's not. Excuse me. It's not really a horror movie, but the things that I find exciting are the things that are psychologically frightening, like Silence of the Lambs. So I'm drawn to that. I mean, the blood and gore, it's cool. It's not really my thing, but that's what was so amazing about it. I don't know if you saw last night's episode, but there was a moment where Lee Turkison's character and Amanda Warren had this conversation at a date. And the way that date went was the reason why he had chosen to purge her. And if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's amazing. They're both amazing, and it's really scary. Yeah.
The Purge really has both elements. It's definitely got gore,
Yeah.
but it also, like I said at the beginning of the interview, the really scary stuff is the way that these people that you can practically recognize from the world around us, the way they think and the way that they plan and plot and conspire. Ugh, it gives me the chills just thinking about it.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Yeah.
We have another question.
Hi.
Hi.
I was wondering, since this is connected to the other, films in the franchise, I'm wondering if you would like to see any kind of crossover with any of the characters in the previous films, and if there's a specific one, who?
I'd love to see it. To answer your question, I think it'd be cool. And I think it'd be pretty easy, actually, to do that. All of the Purge movies and the television show, basically, they feel to me like, obviously, they're in the same world. There definitely feels like, for example, Frank Grillo's character in 2 and 3 could be a cousin of Pete the Cop. So yeah, there's definitely an opportunity for that. And if James DeMonico and Jason Blum feel like that's a good idea, and there's a way for me to be a part of it, I'd love that. Yeah.
I would definitely love to see this series become a Halloween tradition, much like the Saw franchise or something else, where like we look forward to it every fall. It becomes emblematic of the Halloween season.
Totally.
So I'm crossing my fingers that this 10-episode special event will end up giving birth to a whole long series, and hopefully Pete the Cop will be a big part of that.
Yeah, thank you. I think that'd be a great idea. I think that would really work. Yeah.
Today is Halloween. What are your plans for the rest of the afternoon? What are you going to be doing tonight to celebrate?
Well, our son, he and his buddy Ellis just happened to look a lot like Simon and Garfunkel. So I'm not kidding.
I believe there's a picture on Instagram of them playing.
Probably.
On the Little Known Facts on Alana Levine's Instagram.
Yeah, it's uncanny. My son looks like Garfunkel. He's really tall and has the hair, and it's awesome. And Ellis is shorter and looks like Paul Simon. So they're going to go as the two of them, and I think we're going to I like to go out with the kids. It's fun, and we have friends who have kids that we'll hook up with and hang out. And I've never been one. It's funny. Maybe because I'm an actor and because I put on costumes all the time. I've never really been one to get into dressing up on Halloween, but I do enjoy it. I enjoy trick or treating. And, I'm pretty good at stealing my kids' candy, so we'll see what happens.
Well, I'm going to leave you with one very hard-hitting question, which is, what is your favorite Halloween candy of all time? I really didn't think it would be a hard question, but you're giving it like...
No, it's a good question. When I was a kid, my favorite candy bar was Butterfinger. Mm-hmm. I think I'm going to stick with that. Butterfinger's pretty good.
So your kids, if they come back with Butterfingers in their bags.
They'll never see it again. Yeah.
Well, Dominic, it's been so wonderful to get to know you. I feel like I've known you for a long time, but now I actually do. The Purge is so spine-tinglingly wonderful. And again, I really, especially for today, for Halloween, if people haven't seen it and want something to watch while they're waiting for kids to come by for candy, trick-or-treating, binge watch The Purge because it'll put you in the perfect Halloween mood, and we get to see you do some incredible work. And then the final episode airs November 6th. Yeah. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. It
and
was
I
a lot
hope
of
you'll
fun.
Come back
really great
again.
to talk to you. Thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely.